Everybody, this is On coming to you with this month's Connecting Codes video. And this is where we take a look at what is happening in our world events and what will be going on come the month of February 2025. Now, what's so interesting about the work that I do is that I actually write what the energetic currents are going to be, talk about them in my book. Every year I put out a new edition, and this is the book that I put out. It's a pretty hefty book, as you can see, and it is The Code Journey, and this is the 2025 edition. So the insights that I'm talking about today were actually written like a year ago. I didn't know what's going to be in the news cycles. That's kind of the cool thing with energy patterns. My work blends over 50 different modalities, none of which are used in the traditional ways. What I have is a gift to be able to tune in to know what types of energy is going to be present on any given day or time. And I have this gift to hone in to see what's going on. And then what we can do is we can take and see how those things are playing out in our world, what types of things we need to be prepared for or expected. And this is about working with foresight. It's about having that heads up of what might be coming down the line. And this is really great when we're talking about world events and things like that, because it allows us to know, hey, maybe this isn't the time I should be out in a protest, or here's when people are going to be more aggravated and more irritated, or here's when we're going to see certain agendas come up or things like that. So I really don't know, I can't say exactly on a particular day at a particular time that a certain event is going to happen, but we do know that the types of events that are going to happen, we do know when there's prone times where people are more prone to not be as stable or to be angry, or when there is accident energy present and things can go wrong that are happening. I mean, certainly things that we've seen with presidential assassination attempts or that sort of thing has been there. That aggressive energy, that death energy, or that assassination energy has been in the energetic influences present during the times of those things happening. So it's really interesting to take a look at world events from this area. And as much as on one hand, I just don't like to have anything to do with politics, it's really not the area that I enjoy being in. But on the other hand, I think understanding these things and being aware of what's happening and kind of what's going on, it helps us to sort through a little bit of who's on what side of the fence, so to say, who is working in integrity. And these days, it can be very hard. It can help us to know when to take something at face value, or when there may be more hidden messages in what people are saying, or when there are optics being played out. We see that in illusions and deception energy and things like that, where a lot of things may be optics and may not necessarily be as they are. So this kind of helps us to decipher and to understand some of the things that are going on. And I know for me, I've always looked at things and say, okay, I see this coming up, what's going on, and who's sitting in which energy pattern. Are they sitting in the distortions? Are they sitting in the clear energy of it? What actions are they taking? How does this match up with the energy patterns? And that kind of, again, has helped me to see who is standing where, who's actually in the integrity, who's actually spreading the lies, these sorts of things. So it's really great to be able to present this information to you. So every month I put one of these videos out going over what's coming in for the upcoming months. What types of things do we expect to see? What types of things might be playing out during the month? And so this is kind of exciting to see how it is. And usually it almost always plays out, because I know I'll put one of these videos out and I said, I just mentioned that in the video. And it'll show up like a week later or a few days later or something like that, or like, yep, talked about that in the monthly video. And it'll come down the news cycle, and we'll kind of joke around about it and see how it plays out. So let's get on to this month's insights. And again, I don't know if I said, but the book, if you want to check into this, it's called The Code Journey, and this is the 2025 edition. I'm actually already started on 2026. So I'm actually taking a look already what's coming down the pike for that year. But you go on there, you'll look to the goods tab, and then on the goods tab, you'll see the Code Journey. And I have direct links to get you right to the purchase pages, because, well, Amazon kind of likes to hide me a little bit. No surprise there, let's not let too much truth get out or too much wisdom in people's heads. Heaven forbid that should happen. But no, we want that to be out there, so it's just easier for you to do that. Or if you want to go and search or put it in Google, I'm sure it'll come up. But I've had people come back and say, I've put in the exact title and it still doesn't show me your butt. And Amazon, and it's humorous on one hand to me. I don't know. I'm not as big as a lot of people out there, notoriety wise, so it kind of still takes me by surprise when I hear people say that, and or have my tech friends come back and say, "Do you realize how heavily they're suppressing you?" And I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just have to shine my light a little brighter and get it out there. So let's move on. We have kind of a lighter month than some months coming up in February. There's still going to be plenty that's going to be happening, but at the same time, um, not as much or many dynamics that are more politically focused. A lot of things are more just spiritually focused or life focused uh, in February than they are in other months. So that's okay. It's always good to kind of have a little breather. Like I said, I think we're still going to have plenty going on, but it is a little bit lighter in the sense of world events or how much is going on. And part of that is because we have a lot of this unconditional love energy, this peace energy being present. So when we look at that, that means that we could see peace initiatives being put out into the world during February. We could see battles or wars getting ended in there. Of course, anytime you're dealing with those that are in the greed and the materialism and the power controls and the people in those spaces, of course, they're going to try to disrupt peace. So we can probably expect some of the corrupt players to try to disrupt that peace. But I think for the most part, we're going to see a lot of peace deals being made, a lot of battles settling down during this month, which is going to, I think, put a lot of people at ease. That's going to settle people down and give them a chance to get a breather. It doesn't mean that there won't be a lot happening, but it just means that it's going to allow people to focus on the work that they need to do. And that will be a great thing. We're going to see a lot of exposure coming up and maybe some focus on the corrupt humanitarian organizations. So think of those key players in our world, right? You have the Bill Gates, you have Clintons, you have the Obamas that have a lot of these so-called humanitarian foundations out there, and they're really not. They don't actually go to doing the work that they claim to do. And then you also have a lot of groups that are politically controlled. So you look at things like the Sierra Club, you look at, the Red Cross even, which, would fall into some of these humanitarian categories, but a lot of them because of who is, funding the bill for them, or depending on when you have people in government, certain government groups will tell them what they're going to do and what narratives they're going to push and what they need to do if they want to keep getting their funding. So, I think we're going to see some exposure in that area, but I think we're also going to see some things passed, whether we're talking laws or whether we're talking other groups or focus groups put out there that are going to be truly humanitarian based, really looking out for humanity, for people, for the earth, for plant life. So we actually could probably see like RFK come more into the spotlight during this month with all the health initiatives and things like that going on. But I think even more than that, health is almost indirect to the humanitarian aspect, which is about cleaning up the food supply, which is both about helping people and about helping plants and the earth and animals, right? Because when you're cleaning up all of these toxic chemicals that are in the food, then you're helping the whole spectrum in there. So we could see some of that coming up. We're also going to see a lot of clearing out of freeloaders. So this means we can probably, like at least in America here, expect some things to be cut um, not so much to hurt a program or something like that, but just to get the freeloaders off the system. So if, for example, like we have a food bank here in town, okay, and that food bank, they don't really say, okay, it doesn't, you're at such and such an income level, therefore you don't qualify for food. But at the same time, is it really fair for somebody who's making six-figure incomes to go in and get food when you've got people in there who don't even make 20,000 a year, and that's their only option for getting some food to eat. So the key is that the system works great to help the people that actually need the help. But when you get a bunch of freeloaders on the system who just don't feel like doing anything, they're perfectly capable of doing it, but they just don't feel like doing something. They don't feel like working. It's like, well, I just don't feel like having a job, so I'm not going to have one, type of attitude. That puts a drain and a strain on the systems. So the systems actually can do quite well and they can support a lot of people. But when we support the freeloaders, when we support the people who actually physically can go out and do a job, they physically can do things to take care of them, then what happens is you take away from people like your senior citizens who are on fixed income Social Security. You take away from your veterans who have served this country, who have put in their time, who many of them have serious physical issues or challenges to deal with. And you take away from those people who actually need it. And that is, we don't want to do that. So we have to move that out. Now, we certainly know that one of Trump's initiative is to clear out illegal aliens or immigrants coming into the country, and to get rid of those, especially that are dangerous. And so for the last several years here in America, we've been supporting these people. We've been giving them all kinds of freebies and all kinds of things. And they're capable of doing, but they're getting more than our people on Social Security. They're getting more than our vets. They're getting better care, nicer things. And everybody obviously deserves a chance at life, but the people that were getting the benefits were not only getting a free ride, but they were also not here to support the country. So this is one of those things that we're going to see a lot of that clearing out. It's like trimming out all of that excess. It's getting rid of all the drain on the system. If somebody showed up, and just picked up a paycheck every week, but they never showed up and did any work, how long would an employer keep them there? Probably not very long, right? It doesn't make sense. Why would you pay somebody who is not there and not doing their work? So I think this is also going to apply to the government structures, whether you're talking Senate or Congress or, any of these judicial branches. It's like, if you're not going to show up and do your job, guess what? You're not going to be paid for it. So I think we're going to see a lot of this clearing out of the freeloader component in there. And this is going to be really important. Anybody who is in integrity, any of the world leaders who are in integrity, are going to be working down this path. And again, this is not going to end up hurting the people who actually need things. This is just going to clear out the people who are taking advantage of the system. And I feel like I'm in a place to speak for that, right? Because I live a vehicle life, because I can't afford something. I can't afford to put a roof over my head and to have food. And I don't even eat excessively. Some people think that maybe because of my body type, but it's not because of that. I mean, people who know me know, I eat pretty healthy, and I, do the things I need to do, and I just don't have much. And that's just part of where life is at. I mean, ironically, when Biden was vice president and when he was president are the times that I've been without a roof over my head. The whole time Trump was in office, I had a roof over my head. So, I mean, it says something. It says something there. I don't know, but I'm just saying that I feel like I'm in a place that, somebody like in my position who actually needs some of that help is calling out the system. then there's issues with it. Because I've been in that position where I wasn't getting the help because it was going to illegal immigrants, because it was going to other people who neither paid into the system at any point, who didn't care about the country, who were here to create destruction. And I'm not saying every one of them is like that, but there's a lot that are. And certainly I welcome anybody who comes in through the legal processes. I think that is part of America. We need a variety of people here. The different cultures add so much to our country. And I'm all for people making a better life. And I know a lot of people who have immigrated in and had a lot of friends that have. They were first generation coming into the country, and or friends that married people and brought them in as a legal citizen now, and they took the legal path and they did the work and they made the effort to it, and those people are all contributing in wonderful ways in our country, and I thoroughly support that. I'm not against immigration at all. I think it's a very valuable thing in our country, but on the other hand, the illegal methods support so much damage, and the things that happen in the process of those people journeying here. Most people don't realize it costs more for them to come in illegally than legally. It costs the rapes, the trafficking of people, especially children and women, and the abuses. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible what is done to these people. And the reality of it is the only people that need to come in illegally, the people that are coming in illegally are not, it's not about making a better life for themselves in most cases. Again, there's a few, but in most cases it's not. And it's more expensive for them to come in illegally. And a lot of them don't even make it. There's, the honest ones tend not to make it because they're taken up by the cartels and other people. And that's just the sad reality of the situation. So, I want people to come in legally because I know they're going to be safe coming through legally versus illegally. It's going to be less expensive for them to do that. I'm all for that. I'm all for that actually. But this whole illegal thing is a different thing. So anyways, I think we're going to be clearing out a lot of the freeloaders off the system, and that's going to make a huge difference. And that's going to, again, allow us to really take care of the people who are struggling to take care of themselves, who need some help, but they're trying to do something in there. I think budgets are going to come on the forefront a lot in February, and we really need to learn to work with what we have, and we will see where there's been a lot of reckless spending. So this excessive spending, this overspending, fraudulent spending, spending on frivolous things, ridiculous things, and a lot of those types of expenditures, especially that we see in the government structures, are going to support different people. They're actually going back into support that corrupt network of people, and it's actually going into channeling around. I mean, it's like what Kamala paid Oprah to give her an endorsement, and buying endorsements and things like that. I'm pretty sure that that's not totally legal. you know don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's crossing some lines in there. But even so, to spend, millions or $1 billion or whatever it was some absurd amount of money of the taxpayers' money to, do that. And that wasn't just all donation funds. I think a lot of it was donations, but then everything again is being funneled in because some of the taxes are going in to support those political parties and those political people, and to keep their corrupt networks in place. So I think budgets and spending is going to get exposed a lot, and we're going to see a lot of so-called budget cuts, trimming the fat, if you want to say that, removing those expenses that are unnecessary, that are excessive, that are not going to support the people. I don't want to see that on either side of the fence. I don't want to see the money funneling. It's really a money laundering component is what it is in there. So we're really going to find out what it is. And I think this is going to be part of hitting people with the reality that, hey, we might have to buckle up for a little bit just until we can shift and turn things around. And I do believe seriously that things will get turned around, but we're not going to turn them around by going further and further into debt. We have to be able to pay debt down as a country. And so I think that is all going to come into the spotlight, and more that's going to be brought out into the open as far as how we can do that and how that's going to go down and how that's going to work out in there. So this is a big thing. We cannot be spending money that we don't truly have, because all that does is causes like inflation to go up. It causes us to deal with higher prices on everything when we spend more than what we have. When we get back to working within our resources, working within the budgets that we have to work with, and not overspending on them, especially on excessive, unnecessary things. And then we can get back to getting a lot of this debt paid down as a country. The more that we can do that, the lower we can get our everyday living costs down for the average person, your fuel cost, your food cost, the very basic needs, and getting those things tapered down in cost and expenses. And that's going to make a big difference for a lot of people in there. So I think a lot of this, we have so much excess spending in government. It is really insane to think about. I mean, it's really insane what is spent on certain things. So I think a lot of that is going to come out. We're also going to see who is and is not meeting their obligations and responsibilities in this time. So we're really going to see, okay, look, hey, Trump or whoever, you made these promises, and let's see if you're going to carry through with those. Are you going to meet your obligations? Are you going to walk your talk? Are you going to meet the responsibilities you have? And this is going to separate out a lot of people, because a lot of people have kind of been getting this free ride. It's kind of like they've been put into a position and somebody said, here, just go into this position, take this nice little salary. And, we know it's quite a bit over what the average person makes. And, just sit back. If you want to show up to work, show up. If you don't want to show up to work, don't show up. And, and that's kind of been the attitude in there. And so they've never been held accountable for things. They've never had to actually follow through on their responsibilities, such as, speaking up and doing what's best for the people, as opposed to just what's best for their bank account and getting these payoffs. And sadly, there are a lot of people in these positions, and they've just been doing what serves them and not what serves their constituents or their people in their communities and their states and things like that. So I think more we're going to see, look, okay, if you're going to be in this position, you have to do these things. And if you aren't going to do them, you're not going to have a position. And it's going to be that simple. Again, I mean, go back to how many employers do you know that allow you to, just come and sit around, or to not show up and to continue to take a paycheck? It doesn't happen, at least not for the common person. For most people who work for a company, or even if you're self-employed, right? If you don't show up and you don't do the work, you don't get paid. It's pretty simple for the average person. So why should any of these people be paid if they're not meeting their responsibilities and obligations and doing their job? And so that's all going to come into the forefront. And the more that we bring these things up into the forefront and they come up into the forefront, we'll actually be creating peace. And that we're going to actually be creating a balance and a harmony in there, which is going to be very favorable with the code energy. Now, from the 1st through the 18th of the month, what we're going to see is we have a lot of tests and temptations, and this is going to come through stress. So the stress and the pressure is going to be there, and this is going to test people. So people are going to have some pressure put on them, and sometimes that's a really good thing, right? Because when people are under stress, that tells you how strong they really are. That tells you whether they are going to give into corruption, whether they're going to bend on their values, or whether they're going to stand strong and be able to stand up and do the job that needs to be done. So test and temptation through stress. And we want to take a look at, who uses it to polish themselves, who uses it to bring their strengths out, and then, watch what the leaders choose to align with in there. Are they choosing to go with the temptations? Are they choosing to go with that immediate gratification, that, payoff or things like that? Or Are they standing in values and morals and saying, no, I'm going to nourish divine presence in the world. I'm going to support God or creator in the world. And, that's the energy. I'm going to hold out for the real successes and what's going to benefit my community or my states or my countries or whatever, depending on what position they're in. So this tells us a lot, what happens under stress. Are you going to break? Are you going to give in? Are you going to fold? Or are you going to stand up, stand strong, and do what needs to be done and hold in there? And I think this is going to be a big way to tell where people are and whether they actually even belong in the positions they are. Because if they don't have the strength to resist the temptations or to pass the test, so to say, if they can't do that, they're not really qualified to be in the position, right? If you're just taking bribes and payoffs all the time, you're really not qualified to look out for the well-being of the people. You're really not doing what's best for the country in there. So this is going to be a big, again, opening of who's where, who's where and who belongs in those positions and what they're going to do with it and what they're really chasing. And it shows us a lot, anytime people have addictions, anytime that it shows us who's weak and who's strong and, and who can handle things and who can't. And the reality, especially when you're dealing with politics and political positions, we need people who can be strong and be strong under pressure, especially not just when they're coddled and full of partnerships that'll just say, oh, it's okay, we'll take care of it. They've got to be able to stand strong on their own. They've got to be able to, do an interview without a teleprompter. They need to be able to speak fluently on their own. They need to know what's happening. So those are some basic things that'll be coming up there. We need to increase divine presence. So we really want to watch who is increasing that divine presence. Again, who is supporting humanity? Who's doing what is best for the people as opposed to just what's best for their pocketbook? So who is supporting that? Who is operating in that integrity? Who is operating with morals and values and ethics? And that's gonna show us a lot. We're gonna have this period where we're going to get pushed outside of our comfort zone. And I think that's not just people in political positions. I think that is the general public as well, that we are going to have things that will be coming up that are going to make people uncomfortable. And again, that's not really a bad thing, because when we get pushed out of our comfort zone, that's when we will speak up. That is when we're going to be willing to take action. That's when we're going to recognize that we really need to handle things, and we need people who can handle them in there, right? We don't need people who are off having parties and taking vacations and stuff like that when there's fires to face and when there's flooding to face and when their communities are being destroyed and when there's people threatening war or drones flying over or whatever the case is. We need those people who are going to do things and who know how to say, okay, this might not be comfortable, but it's what needs to be done, and honor that. So again, I think people in general might hit some of those points where, ooh, I don't know if I like what I'm seeing, or, this is a little scary to go through. So we might hit some things that feel a little scary to go through, again, because we might not necessarily have a lot of control over them. And we're going to have to have some faith. We're going to have some trust. And that's where it comes back to saying, well, who is and is not in integrity, and get behind those people who are in integrity. So going to be a big thing there. We're going to have a lot of illusions, deception, manipulation coming up. Things are not what they seem. We're likely to see sabotage attempts and betrayal attempts in here. So again, this is going to be part of that flushing out. And when people are standing in truth and integrity, there are going to be those people who, again, who cave in. We're going to see who can hold out under the pressure and who can't. And those people who can't hold out under the pressure, they may be the ones who go into betrayal against other people because they're scared. They're afraid. They can't handle that discomfort of what it takes to stand in the truth or the integrity in there. The sabotage attempts, I think February is going to be the time where we start to see some of those so-called booby traps that have been set um, for the leaders who are trying to make changes. And I think we're going to start to see those booby traps come right up here in February. I mean, we're just having the inauguration today. So, in some ways, I think a lot of people think, oh, this is the inauguration day. That's when everything's going to happen. Well, in some ways, that's almost too obvious, in my opinion, to pick such a high profile day to do something. Not always, but sometimes I think that is the case. And so they wait. They want like that delayed reaction where people, something can go. They've already set the trap, and they can go and pretend like they have had nothing to do with it. And so I think we're definitely going to see these sabotage attempts come up. And again, that's going to tell us who is truly there and who truly isn't, who can take it, who cannot take it in there. What has been suppressed becomes visible. So this is where we're going to see a lot of those files and stuff that everybody's waiting for. I mean, I know Trump said he's going to release these files right away. I would expect them. It's possible they could hit just before the end of February, but I think February is really when we're going to see it up. And what has been suppressed? The Epstein files have been suppressed. The UFO files have been suppressed. The assassinations, like with RFK and JFK Jr. and Martin Luther King, whose birthday's today, or is being celebrated today. All of these high profile people, there's been a lot of assassinations. I mean, of course, we had that Japanese leader who was standing up for a lot of things, and they took him out. So I think a lot of these assassinations information is going to be getting brought out into the open. I think those files are going to be made public. So we're going to see a lot of things, even in regards to like the medical stuff, in regards to um, jabs and stuff like that. I think that there's going to be those sorts of things where a lot of information is going to be coming up. I think a lot of things, files and things that have been kept hidden from people, like the way the FDA works, or the way maybe even some of these, again, organizations that have been deemed humanitarian that aren't, like the WHO or the UN, or these groups and stuff like that. Again, showing here's some disclosure. And I think people have been waiting a long time for this. So they're really ready. People want to dig in and see what's actually in those files. Why have they been suppressing them? Why have they taken people out over them? Why has it been kept hidden for so long? And I think that this is going to be a really interesting thing to see what comes up with that. We're going to see peace emerging where people are taking practical and responsible action. And so, again, this is kind of like that. We got to get into the adult phase and get out of our childish phases. And we've got to get in, and where there is practical and responsible action being taken, that is going to provide us with peace. That's going to give us some peace of mind. That's going to allow people to kind of calm down a little bit over some things. And it's going to be like, okay, we can deal with this. We understand what we're dealing with. We can deal with it. We just have to stay within our parameters that we have to work with. And again, don't go spending the money that we don't have. Don't go listening to people who really are not suggesting things that are necessarily good for us, and going from that aspect. Past things are going to be resurfacing. And this is especially around injustices. So again, when we start to see these disclosures, we could see a lot of past information come out around the Kennedys. We could see a lot of past information come out around Martin Luther King. We could see things coming out again from stuff that was started back in the 60s or the 70s or the 40s, trials and experimentations and things like that. We could also see even more recent past things resurfacing. Could be attempts at pandemic. I'm kind of, I don't know for sure on that, if that's really going to hit so much. um, right now, this year. That may be something that little bits and seeds are being planted out there, but probably next year is going to be stuff that really hits our health from what I'm looking at as I'm writing. I think next year we're going to be dealing with a lot more of the health stuff than we will this year. I think there's other things already in place here. So that's going to be a big thing. It's going to be interesting to see where the injustices are being exposed and some of these networks perhaps between government agencies and things that have happened to different leaders that have gone up against the system and things, and definitely those injustices that have been held in place where there's been injustices against the people. I think we're going to see that too. And that can include anything from taxes on pay and estates and land and a variety of things that will come up. And I think there's a lot of people who have just accepted things and they don't even realize that a lot of these things are injustices. They're just like, well, that's the way it is. We'll just keep paying everything. And so I think it's going to be a pretty eye-opening time, to say the least, as the past is brought up. Like, when did this fiat money system get put into place? When did these taxes start? So definitely there could be some aspects connected to the past for what's going down now and some of the changes that are being made during this month. We're going to see probably those who are working in those corrupt factions trying to get so-called good people to react. And they want to do this. So this is part of the provoking. This is part of getting people, one, to either betray, or two, to try to silence those people who continue to speak the truth, who continue to bring the truth up. And what they want to do is they want to poke and they want to prod and they want to tease and they want to talk badly of people, and they want to accuse them of things that they haven't done, just to get them to react. And then when they react, they're like, oh, see, I told you this person was a bad person. See, I told you this is why we should, go and beat them up when they walk down the street, type of thing. And this is what they do. I mean, it's that proverbial sort of bully. And we need to be able to take lawful and ethical action. And that means we have to root into the truth. We have to root into the facts of things, not just our perception of them, but the actual facts. So if we work with this energy correctly, what we do is we take their provocation and use it as an opportunity to bring up the facts, not to be in battle with them, but to simply bring the facts forward. And when we do that, we actually are removing their power and things. And if we're taking that action as opposed to reaction, they have nothing to use against us. But what they want to do is they want to provoke people. So this is part of creating that division. Well, if we do things that we know is going to upset this group of people over here, even though they're good people, and we're the bad people, we're going to make them look bad because we're going to trigger them into such a reaction that we can justify doing the violence that we want to do, even if they don't go into that reaction. So it's a really twisted inversion thing that is about making the good people look bad, the bad people look good. And we have to be careful of that, because that really plays into that deception and that manipulation energy that we also have present during this time. So a lot of times when we're in this energy, what we need to do is stand in the truth and the integrity, and we need to kind of just hold that ground in there and to work again from the actual facts, not our perception of things, but the actual facts of things. And this happens. I see so many people injecting their perceptions into things. Oh, this is going to happen at this time on this date. This is going to happen in the Fed, or whatever the case is. And we see it on both sides of the fence, really. And that's not going to serve us. That's not going to serve us. We've got to root into the facts, not perceiving things or pretending to perceive things or pretending to have the truth or the intel or whatever, just to get people to take action, because that's as deceptive as not standing in the truth. That's just as deceptive with people. So we got to be careful of that. And again, let's read into the facts and let's use the facts to stand up for ourselves. And that's the way you do it. You stand up for yourself without being in the battle. You take the action, you don't go into the reaction, then they have nothing to use against you. They cannot justify their actions. And when they cannot justify their actions, then you actually dissolve things from getting bad, or you resolve them from getting really dangerous or violent or things like that. So that's why that's such a good path to take. Now, from the 19th through the end of the month, this is the time we want to focus on harmonizing our differences. So yeah, we all have our opinions. We all have our likes and our dislikes, but we need to start figuring out where we're going to harmonize things. We need to start settling battles. So we're going to see a lot of that, again, that settling down of wars, of conflict going on in this time. We're going to start seeing more people going, hey, look, you want the environment to be good. You want healthy food. Guess what? So do I. I want that too. Maybe we have different ideas of who should be handling that or how that's going down. That's part of why I think RFK is maybe a good person to have in that position, because traditionally he's been on one side of the fence, and we need to stay focused on what the bigger purpose is in there, and to really say, look, okay, we both want this to happen, so how are we going to make this happen? And we're going to have to set aside some of our differences. We're going to have to figure out, how do we harmonize this energy? And sometimes that can be stronger opinions on both sides, but they come into flow with each other. So sitting there saying, hey, instead of just sitting there being out there hating and producing signs, why don't we get together and put together a community garden? Why don't we support certain things here and actually take the actions, in there? And these are the things we have to get back to doing. What are we going to do in our own communities? Stop waiting for the government to tell you to do something. It's not up to the government to tell you like they're your parents. Most of us are adults, and we could just sit there and say, hey, we want to do this initiative in our communities. Who wants to help me with this? Who wants to come into this? And, we do that a lot in my community, like our food bank. We have a lot of local businesses, individual proprietors and farmers that will donate to our food bank because they support the cause of the food bank. They want to help people in need. And that's one of the points where we can all come together on that. We can all work in this harmony with each other and say, yeah, we definitely want this in our food bank. So let's stop worrying about who's on which political belief side, and let's focus on creating a great food bank. And that means we should not be relying on our big grocery stores to provide everything. That means, hey, our local little bakery, if they have some extras and we can freeze that, or we can, give that to people in need, then let's do it. And as opposed to just throwing it in the trash. And this is what's happening more and more, at least in the areas that I live in, that we see these initiatives, and it's kind of a win-win for everybody in there. So we've got to take care of those things, and we've got to be willing to say, what does our community really need? And let's focus on those true needs, and being responsible, even if we have these differences of opinion. So we don't want to allow that division. We do have some health challenges coming up in this time, and this is where, again, this is the 19th through the end of the month in February. And we do want to stay alert. I think we could see a pandemic attempt at this time. I think there could be a push towards it. So we might see the narratives come up in the news. You might see some stuff blowing up. Oh, there's this many flu cases. Oh, there's this many malaria cases, or this many whatever, Ebola cases, or whatever they're putting out there. I think there's 4 or 5 key ones that they put out there. And they're going to try to scare people, but I don't think they're going to totally be able to get away with something at this time. Again, I think this is one of those sort of booby traps, like let's use more as a distraction to keep other things from getting done. And it's going to be interesting to see, can this administration stay focused on what needs to be done and do that? in there. So we want to stay on the alert for that. Again, I'm not sure that we'll totally see it, or there could be some things just going around and then they don't fully manifest until next year. But I think that I think even if there's an attempt, I don't think they're really going to be able to get away with things in there. Could there be some genuine concerns? Yeah, because when you're doing deportations, when you're moving people around that naturally are carrying a lot of diseases, they haven't been vetted, they haven't been checked, they're not being, they're not, there's no health checks that have been done on them. Yeah, you can spread some diseases, and there's a variety of ways that it can be done. The key for me in this is always, what is the preventative care that you as an individual are going to do? And I think that's what comes down to it. If you are getting out in the sun, if you're doing some basic health care, keeping up your basic nutrients, right? Your C's and your D's, and low histamine foods, which can break the body down, different things like that, eating a variety of foods, because as we know, it's not just about eating a few tiny select foods. We need a variety of things to boost our immunity system. But just taking those extra steps for personal care and personal well-being, getting some extra rest, things like that, all go a long way to, even if there is something going around, that you don't catch it in there. So I think definitely that's going to be it. And this can also indicate just more information coming out about the health challenges that are being present, and how has our things that have been in our food and things that have been sprayed in the air and things like that, how are they creating these health challenges, and where have these health things been coming from in reality, versus just, hey, all of a sudden everybody has cancer, or everybody has lupus, or everybody has, whatever they have, heart issues or breathing issues or whatever it is. Well, you know what? Those things just don't suddenly come up. They come from somewhere. So this can also, again, be an awareness of the health challenges that we have to face coming up during this time. We want to recognize those using quality and integrity. So I think this is going to be important. And I think that those who are standing in quality and integrity in what they're doing will receive recognition during this time. So that's going to be important. We want energy put into creating successes and helping those who are struggling. So again, sorting out who are the freeloaders, who are trying to do something to help themselves, but they're just struggling. They're just still having a tough time making ends meet. I mean, even these, you look at these, I look at them around our community, some of these young girls, and they're struggling to feed their families. They're having a hard time. They're out there working 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week, or in some cases 80 hours a week, but it's just not cutting it with the way all the prices keep going up, and the gas. And in my community, a lot of them can't live here because there's no housing really for them to be here. And because we are considered a vacation town or resort town, we're a ski town. And so a lot of the cost of living, even if you can find something, is very expensive here. And so a lot of them are commuting in. So they've got those gas costs. They've got a lot of other costs there. And even working 2 full-time jobs, they're not making it. And this is the type where we've got to make that shift. So I think we're going to see some initiatives again come out that are going to help those people who are truly struggling, who, or somebody like myself who can't get a regular job. So I'm here and I'm relying on, money that people want to gift me, or I'm relying on my services or things like that. And it's just not flowing in enough. But I because of various physical reasons and challenges that I deal with, I can't just go out and get a regular job and bring that additional income in. So I think we're going to see more and more, again, given to like our veterans coming up, more word of what's going to go to them, our senior citizens, doing things to help them out along those lines. Again, the people who actually need it, that are trying to do something, and it's just not cutting it. I think also actions that we can see taken. from the 1st through the 23rd, we're getting into what actions can we expect to see. I think we're going to see a lot of business deals, and we know that Trump is a master when it comes to business deals. Like him or don't like him, he is a master at business deals. And he has proven that this has helped us out a lot in the past. And I think we're going to see how this helps us out again. And this is, he's a master negotiator. He's a master deals person. He's got a lot of people in place that he's been training. How do you do these deals? And I think we're going to hear a lot about deals that he's making, whether those are deals with China or Russia or Zelensky or whoever it is out there in the world. And there's a lot that's going to be cut. And I do believe a lot of what he does is going to be to the benefit of America. That's my personal opinion on that. Again, a lot of what he's done in the past has been to the benefit. So we can look for a lot of that to come out in those first 3 weeks. I think we're going to see action again of helping those who are trying to help themselves but struggling. So really all throughout the month, because we have that partially at the end of the month in our monthly influences, but then we also have that in the action energy at the beginning of the month. So I think all throughout the month, there's going to be this focus put on who the true need people are. And again, I think a lot of that's going to come back to senior citizens and veterans. I think those are 2 areas that he's really focusing on, those people who are on Social Security, cut the excess, cut the people who are freeloading, and of course, a lot of this, once we get the immigration and stuff under control, start deporting people, a lot of people are going to fall off of that system, and that's going to open up a lot of funds or resources that will go to those who really need it. And I think we're going to see, again, a lot of humanitarian efforts coming up. And again, that's 2 aspects. One, exposing those who have appeared to be humanitarian but are not, and the other aspects of true humanitarian things. So what does that mean? I think we're going to see more bans on like GMO foods, more bans on things like the red dyes, the blue dyes, the variety of things that have no business being in our food. Bans on geoengineering, spraying things, cloud seeding, stuff like that, which is spraying aluminum and various other things in the air, which, as we know, affect the lungs. I think we're going to see more things being done to clean up the water system, which is going to help people. It's going to help animals. It's going to help plants. Of course, when you get a lot of these GMO foods and these lab created foods out of the food system, your environment is naturally, your soil is naturally going to get enriched. Yes, it's going to take time to renew and restore, but it is going to get enriched, and it is going to move back to health. We're even seeing in the fast food industries where they're going back to lard, and they're getting away from these vegetable oils and seeds, which are really unhealthy for people. So, and they're actually, things are much tastier done in full lard than they are in these other oils. So again, a lot of aspects along that line that I could see coming forward during this time, a lot of action being taken in that direction. And again, the humanitarian efforts are going to come back to taking care of our seniors, taking care of our veterans. These are 2 core areas, and I know Trump has mentioned those a lot, that those are two areas he really wants to focus on and to help those people who truly are in need. Also, I think we're going to see a lot of things going on of help into the areas like North Carolina, to the true innocent fire victims, to the people that, again, that truly need help in these areas, who have become victims of different things that have happened that should not have happened. Certainly we know fires like in Hawaii, fires in California. There's a lot of things that contributed to those, and they shouldn't have gotten to the point that they were. And while I have sympathy for everybody, but there are certainly a lot of wealthy people who have second, third, fourth homes that lost homes there, and they have other places to go, and they have resources to work with. But we really need to make sure that we're not, paying Hunter Biden out billions of dollars for his artwork And then letting somebody who that was their only home, their only thing that they don't have resources, they don't have places to go, um, suffer and not get anything or get, I think they were giving $750 or something to them. Some absurd amount that, doesn't even pay for food in California, because of all the cost and stuff out there. So I think we're really those are also areas that could come to the surface, that I think there's going to be focus getting those people some help, getting people, again, help in North Carolina, which has been extremely forgotten with all the floods that they had. I mean, thank God for the Amish that went down there and put up housing, and the people that just said pretty much screw the government, and we're going to go in and help people and save lives anyways. So again, those types of things coming up. Risks that are taken that are a wise use of power and, are rooted in strong relationships will work out better than expected. So there are probably going to have to be some chances taken, and I think we're going to see some of that in the business deals that are made. But that's why, again, we have to have some strong people in place, because they need to be wisely using the power or the position that they're in. And if they do that and they take the appropriate risks and chances, not gambles, there's a very big difference there. But if they take the appropriate risks and chances, things could pay off very, very well. And I think that's really going to benefit our country. Then from the 24th through the end of the month, again, we're going to see this sabotage energy coming up. And I think, again, a lot of this attempt to sabotage is going to be blocked. So remember, we had that component of, well, could they try to start another pandemic thing during that time? The corrupt factions, that could be one of the booby traps. That could be one of the things that tries to sabotage Trump and his administration, for example. And that's coming from a space of greed and power and control and unfavorable energy. But I think it's all going to be blocked. Honestly, I think it's just every time they try these things, it's just gets harder and harder and worse on them. They just bring more bad luck to themselves, honestly, in this. I think also we're going to see a lot of mission work supported. So again, like those Amish that are going down and building the homes, I very easily could see some funds going their direction or something to help out their community in there. Or again, more of this missionary work coming in to rebuild these areas that have been damaged, that shouldn't have been damaged by things. So again, I think that's going to come in this spotlight, and I keep getting that North Carolina is going to come up. So this is a big thing all the way through. And this is really helping the people that can't help themselves. So that's why I think also North Carolina will be a bigger spotlight than, say, Los Angeles, because while there are innocent victims in Los Angeles, a lot of the people there do have ways to help themselves, whereas people in North Carolina that were damaged by the floods down there, and they do not, they're not in a position that they can do a lot. So I think that's going to be there. And again, it brings it back to the veterans and the seniors, right? Those people are not as able to help themselves as other people are. They're not necessarily in that position. They can always go get a job or things like that. So we need to take care of them. And partnerships, favorable partnerships that are in integrity are going to bring a lot of success. So I think some of the actions that we'll see in that last week of February is going to be rooted around developing strong partnerships that benefit not just the United States, but the whole world in there. Now, thoughts, where's the mindset that people are going to be in from the 1st through the 14th? So basically the first half of the month, people are going to be focused on what needs to get done. What is our biggest priority? And we've heard that over and over again. It is removing the crime. It's removing the illegal immigrants. It's moving the terrorists out of the country. These are some of the first and biggest priority, because you almost need to take care of those things before you can handle other things. And, because if you don't get rid of that, you're going to be dealing with all kinds of distractions and issues and problems going on. So that is all ready to go. I think that's already starting in January, some of that, but that's going to continue to be a focus. What do we need to get done? What is our biggest priority? And that's going to play out very well. It's going to be a time where we're going to find out, are people walking their talk? Again, Trump made a lot of big promises from day one. This is what's going to happen. The first few weeks, this is what's going to happen. So is he really going to follow through on those promises? And that's something we want to watch. And can he do it? And following through on the promises he has made is going to be very critical during this first half of February. Actions need to be focused on what brings peace and law and order, and removing criminals. So I think, again, that's going to be the big focus. Let's get these people out of here, and let's get in and let's get things cleaned up. Also, the focus is going to be things that show people that they are cared for. And again, part of the way that we do that is people know they're cared for when their communities are made safe, when prices are brought down. These are showing the everyday person that they're cared for and that they're important. And that, when you come in legally, when you are an American citizen and you've worked hard and you've paid into the system, that you're going to be cared for. So that's going to be a big area that they're going to have to focus on. Past things that are unresolved. We're not going to be able to avoid that during this time. So we're going to have to deal with these unresolved issues that are from our past. And that means the corruption's probably going to be brought down as facts expose them, and things are being done in ethical and lawful ways. So this is going to be I think this is going to be a big thing. So we're going to probably see a lot of past stuff where people have operated unethically. And, we've just seen Biden do all of these ridiculous pardons. Well, again, you don't pardon somebody unless they've done something wrong, or they're going to do something wrong. All of these future pardons for things that they might do somewhere in the future, that's kind of like saying, hey, I know this person's going to commit a crime, so I'm going to make them, immune to any persecution before they even commit the crime. If people are innocent and they don't have plans to do anything, you wouldn't have any reason to pardon them. And I think this is part of why Trump never pardoned his own son. One, because he wanted to show the bias that Biden would pardon his son, even though his son had committed crimes, and that was proven. But I think Trump looked back and said, my son hasn't committed crimes, so there's no reason to pardon him. There's no reason to do this. And if he has committed a crime, then he has to be accountable for it. One, showing that contrast, but two, also saying, I don't need to pardon innocent people in there. Now, where are there exceptions? What is a pardon truly for? A pardon is for those people who were wrongly accused or wrongly convicted of something. For example, our J6 people that have been sitting in jail for several years. And those people have been wrongly persecuted. Those are the people that deserve pardons in things. People where things are very marginal, but just these political things like a blanket protection against people like Fauci and, big pharma companies and stuff like that. No, these people know what they're doing in there. So I think also there's going to be a focus on, again, letting this corruption come down. And if we do things in lawful and ethical ways, the corruption will expose itself. We will get it taken care of. Again, this mission work being supported during this time. Now, from the second half of the month, the 15th on, the focus is going to be on evaluating relationships, alliances, enemies. Those who seek our suffering are going to be exposed, and they're going to be left on their own. So the exposure is coming in that area. People are going to either talk or get themselves in trouble because of something that they say. I think this is going to be a time where Trump is really going to be evaluating, who are we connected with? Who are our partnerships? What relationships do we have? And again, as he's said over and over again, it's not a bad thing to have a good relationship with powerful world leaders like Xi and Putin. You know, doesn't mean that he agrees with them on anything, but if you have good, solid relationships, that is part of protecting your country. That is part of being able to work through things. That is part of dissolving wars in the world. So those things are all going to be evaluated. And I think he's going to be taking a very close look at things as far as who the true alliances and who the true enemies are in there. So that's going to be interesting to see what comes out on that. And again, those people who are trying to create suffering on people, that exposure is going to come to them. And we're going to see again more of those networks brought out. We're also going to see withdrawal from things that take advantage of us. So where is that going to happen? So I think that, Trump has said he's going to pull out of some of these organizations. This is likely going to be the time that it's going to happen, or that he will vocalize it or finalize it. And we could see him pull out of organizations like the WHO, the UN, the Paris Treaty Accords. Those things all come out because they do not benefit our countries. The last thing you want is somebody that doesn't truly have a medical background telling you what your citizens are going to have and overriding all authority of your country and your freedom and your rights, in something that they're creating and profiting off of. And so these organizations are not working to our benefit, and we also are not getting back what we're paying in. And it's not right for one country to be footing the expenses for everybody. Everybody has to contribute. And a lot of these organizations, again, have a lot of corrupt people in them, a lot of people who are not looking out for the humanitarian interest or for people. They're harming them and hurting them instead of helping them. So I think that we're probably going to see the withdrawal from those organizations come up during those times. I know that was a big focus for Trump to do very early on in his presidency. So I think we're going to see stuff coming out in that second half of February. And then we really have to stand in our value and our worth. And I think that we're going to see that Trump is going to be probably putting a lot of people on notice, saying, you're not going to mess with America. You're not going to do this. And we are a valuable country. We have worthy people in our country, and we are worth being treated better. And that does also play in with whether we stay in or pull out of these organizations, because we have to know our worth and value, and we shouldn't be getting taken advantage of as a country. And there's a lot of other countries around the world who are relying on us to be in that worth and value. So that it goes way beyond just America with all of that. And if we're standing in our worth and our value, we don't let people take advantage of us. We don't let other countries, other world leaders take advantage of us. So that's going to become a big focus. And then finally getting on to the soul self energy. And a lot of people think, why do you do this in world affairs? What's the soul self got to do? Well, that's about those ethics, and that's about that integrity, and that's about working with a clear conscience and things. So from the 1st through the 4th, the soul energy, and plus we want to nourish that energy, right? We want to nourish the God, divine presence energy in the world. We want to, divine source energy. We want to support that and nourish it. So we want to look at what needs to be done to do that. Well, from the 1st through the 4th, the big thing is getting our priorities in order. And I already kind of talked about that, right? With the thoughts area, where the focus needs to be. What are the biggest priorities? Get those in order and start with those. Test and temptations, again, coming up in that time. We talked about that in the monthly energy, and that has to be in divine alignment. We've got to choose what is true, what is eternal, what is going to support us moving forward. We need to choose what nourishes goodness in the world, for lack of better terminology. We've got to set aside the temptations. So that's like saying no to somebody trying to bribe you, to stand in integrity for what's best for the people in your district or your country or your state or whatever the case is. And so a lot of tests and temptations coming up during that time to see if we are going to choose that divine aligned path. And if we're going to choose that over greed and things that are just fleeting and temporary and don't have any real solutions. It's like a lot of these green initiatives that were put out there that are so-called environmentally friendly, and most of them that weren't, they were about greed. So when you start to look at that, we need to not just implement something quick out of fear. We need to really take the time to see, is this actually going to be of value? And what's happened is people have had so much fear installed in them that they settle for these temptations. They settle for the quickest, fastest fix when it doesn't actually fix anything and it creates more issues. So we have to be able to choose that that path, the path of spirit of things, and we have to let go of the greed. We have to let go of what's tempting in there. So this is going to be a big thing. And that could also play into even some of the things that we've heard coming up that might be connected to people in political positions in the stock market and stuff like that, and how they're profiting over things or off of things while in position in office. So we could also see something else coming up around that during that time. The 5th through the end of the month, this is about receiving help and support from others. So this is a time where we're going to, again, see some of those alliances. Who is willing to support the United States and what they're doing? Or will the United States be helping some of these other countries? We've heard Trump in recent times here, a few weeks here, talking about things going on with Greenland, bringing them back in, bringing in these different areas to the United States. And does that allow us to help and support others in a stronger way? And it's possible that it would. So there's things like that, this receiving help and support from others. And I think that we're going to be seeing that in a lot of areas, because those who are kicking out the corruption, who are moving into the integrity, right? You've got Melania over in Italy, and you've got Malay in Argentina, whatever countries he's in over there. He's making big leaps and bounds and strides over there. So I think there's going to be this help and support among all of these people who are working in this way and what's best for humanity and for people. We're going to see closing out what has gone as far as it can. And I have to question, is this the time that we're going to start seeing things connected to the IRS close out? I think that there could be some possibilities in that range. I don't know exactly if that's who it's going to be, but I think definitely we're going to close out those things who really aren't serving any purpose and who really can't keep going on the way they are. So it will be interesting to see, but that's kind of what came to mind for me was the IRS in there. So whether it is or not, I'm not sure. Could be some other organizations in there that we see closing some things out on, removing of unnecessary positions, things like that. We need to decide if we're going to stay in something or go our own way at this time. So some big decisions, I think. And again, we're going to have to look at what is in that divine alignment. What is going to nourish and support God or divine source in the world versus just what supports greed in the world. So again, about doing the right thing. And we need to choose either materialism or spirit. And this is a critical turning point, because depending on what we choose, that sets the path that we're going to go down, and we're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And I'll tell you, if materialism is chosen, it's not going to be a pretty path, and it's not going to be a great direction to go. If we choose spirit, we can open up so many things, and there can be so many wonderful things that come out of that. And those that are in materialism, again, they're going to try to create challenges, and that comes into some of that sabotage energy. And we're going to know the people who have set the booby traps, the people who have set up to sabotage other people, are working in materialism. And again, these people are not looking out for the best interest of the countries. They're looking out for their own personal pocketbooks. And so we got to be careful of that. We need to, again, know our value and worth. That was in there before. That was in the second half with our thoughts energy, where our mind focus needs to be. What is our value and worth? And how do we leverage that? And how do we use that to strengthen ourselves, not to hurt other people, but to strengthen ourselves and stop being taken advantage of as a country, because we've been very taken advantage of. We've let a lot of people walk on of us. Our leaders have turned power over that they should never have turned over. They've, you look at all the money that's gone out to Ukraine and how it's like supporting them in these luxury mansions, and, Zelensky, all the things he could buy, and his government people, and, paying for things that their country needs to pay for, and doing that and placing that above our own people. And we have to let our own people know that they are valued, that they are worthy. And we don't do that by sending funds someplace else and making them continue to suffer. So we've got to know our value and worth, and then we've got to use that to orchestrate change that is in divine alignment. And that's going to be a very important thing to do. And if we can do these things, we will see true success. We will be turning down the temptations of corruption, and we will put ourselves on a path of true success, true strength as a country. And what does that mean? That's not just about our individual states and communities and our country, because when we are strong in America, that allows the entire world to gain in strength. That means everybody benefits. And that is going to be very, very important. Well, everybody except for maybe the corruption in there. And that's still a good thing. That's true success in there. And so really working that down. And of course, when we make those choices, what else are we making when we look at things that need to be addressed and priorities that need to be put in place? That means working on all kinds of addictions. So that means working on the drugs, working on the drug cartels, working on getting people out of addictions to things. That means when you're cleaning up your food system, that you are removing food addictions that people have. And of course, we know there's been a lot of things put into food to make people addicted to things that are unhealthy for them. And so I think that's going to play out in a lot of different ways in there. And again, this all brings true success, because if you have healthy people in your country, you have clearer thinking people, you have less issues, you have fewer people that are going off and creating drama and chaos and things like that. All of these things play in together. When you have a healthy food supply, a healthy air supply, all of these components work together. When people are not living in addictions, whether that is, addictions to people or situations or depravity, or addictions to the system, or food addictions or drug addictions, or whatever form of addiction that is. Again, you have people who are thinking clearly. You have people that are using their minds, and they're not as easily programmed, and they're able to create a good life for themselves. And that is really the measure. How many people in your country actually can have their own home versus how many are homeless, how many cannot afford something. When you have, where you're down to maybe 1% or 0.5% or 1/4% of your people. I mean, ideally, all of your people, other than those people who just choose it, and don't have to be in that position, then you're looking at real successes. When you have healthy people in your country and they are doing well physically, then you're having successes. And what do all these things do? When you support the health, when you support all of these things, then you move people off of a welfare system. You move people away, and you give them value and worth, because they can go out and do things again. They can feel good. They feel strong in their bodies and their minds and hearts. And all of these things make a difference, because it reduces the fighting, it reduces the arguments, it just clears up so many different things in our world. And I think a lot of people are ready for this. So that is what I've got for February. Really a great thing. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And I look forward to coming back next month and telling you what we can expect to have going on in March. So in some ways, this energy is very gentle, but at the same time, I think we're going to have a lot of big movement coming through in February. And I think there's a lot of things that can really benefit us. And I think a lot of people are going to start to realize, oh, wow, look at all of this stuff we've been living under. And I'm so glad we're getting our priorities in order. And I'm starting to get it, and I understand why we need to do some of these things. And I think that's been the biggest hurdle, is a lot of people haven't really understood why we need to do some of these things. Why do we need to pull out of certain organizations? Why do we need good relationships with countries that could be considered our enemies and things like that? So I think a lot of this stuff is going to become clearer, and I think a lot of people are going to see a difference. And I've seen it in my own community. I'm already seeing a shift where I'm not seeing so many people that are illegal immigrants. And I know when I came back here about a year and a half ago, after touring with my work, and I saw firsthand what the Border Patrol was doing in partnership with the illegal immigrants, providing them with getaway cars and giving them instructions of how to stir up chaos in an area and how to get things aggravated and agitated, and to open the opportunities for shootings. And I saw it firsthand. I was sitting in the parking lot watching it all go down. And that's a scary thing to see. And I can say, thankfully, now in my own community, that happened in a different town than what I actually live in, but I can see it now, even in my own community. All of this sudden, there's certain groups of people who are not here. They've all been disappearing over the last week or two. And I see it because I sit in public spaces a lot. So I see who's coming and going, and I see what's here. And it's changed over the last couple of weeks. It's changed because they know what's coming down the line. And I think we're going to see a lot more going on in my state. Everybody thinks we're a quiet little state up here in Maine, but I'll tell you, I think Maine's going to be hitting the news with a few things too, because we've got some leaders here who just don't want to do the right thing. And I think those changes are going to be coming too. So take care, everybody, and I will see you next month.